welcome back to another episode of Crypto and the Caribbean, the show where we cover all things crypto and Caribbean related. I'm your host, El, and for today's episode, like you see with the title, it's the follow-up to last week's episode where we started to dig into the CaribDollar or Carib coin project. So this is the part 2 where we dive into the white paper itself and really see what the project is about. So let's just get started. So this one doesn't need much introduction. We started talking about the CaribDollar project last week. We looked at a couple articles and we briefly glanced at the website and the white paper. But today we're actually going to dive into the white paper itself to get to the meat of the project. All right. So first and foremost, right off the jump, this is like 30 pages. And when I say like 30 pages, it's exactly 30 pages. Which you already kind of know how I feel about long white papers. It's just why. But it is what it is. We're going to go through it. Now, I'm not going to actually read all 30 pages on the video. So this video is just going to be covering the highlights and what I feel are some of the most important parts and key notes that you need to take away from the white paper. Just like the Haitian dollar and just like the Bahamas white paper, we're going to do the same thing here. So right out the gate, CaribDollar, fostering economic development and enhancing financial inclusion in the Caribbean. Barbados, 2021, that is October 18th, Dr. Jan Schroeder and Gabriel Abed et al. So we touched on the executive summary before, but let's look at it again here. So we started with the vision. A quasi-monetary union is fast-tracked towards the Caribbean single market and economy. And the first paragraph here pretty much sums up what you need to know about it. CaribCoin Inc.'s vision is a quasi-monetary union for the whole Caribbean, bridging the gaps between economies of the region. This will be enabled by CaribDollar, a regional stablecoin backed by the Caribbean assets and easily accessible to individuals and businesses across the Caribbean. So the goal here is just unified money. It's just one unified monetary decision. Just like the euro with the EU, where they have they hold on to their individual currencies. So you still have pounds in England, you still have francs or whatever it is they got in France. They keep their individual currencies, but they still all accept the universal, or at least universal within the EU, the euro. Same concept here. All of the independent Caribbean islands and nations keep their independent currencies, but they allow for the utility and ease of access to this one single unified dollar, the CaribDollar. So that's what they're shooting for here. Common regional means of exchange, lower financial transaction costs, enhanced trade. Monetary policy will be shaped by a Caribbean multi-stakeholder group of governments, central banks, and other economic and societal organizations called CaribDollar Governance. Okay. Collaborative effort will foster institutional integration and fast-track the region's movement towards the Caribbean single market and economy, or CSME. So, as you'd probably guess, it's not going to be a single entity that's in control of this. It's more along the lines of not really a DAO, but in a sense, it's DAO-ish, where they're delegating the responsibility and delegating the power throughout the agreed upon organization. The group of people that are going to be affected by it would have, in a sense, elected officials or chosen representatives that on their behalf will come together to determine the outcome of how this CaribDollar is going to be implemented, how it's going to be used, and how it's going to be developed going forward. The mission: introduce an all-Caribbean stablecoin and empower its multi-stakeholder governance. Pretty straightforward, we don't need to go into that. The problem: a disconnected Caribbean. Let's dig into this a little bit. The economic disconnection facing the Caribbean is exacerbated by large costs for businesses through growing non-tariff barriers. So, to sum it all up, a bunch of individual nations have their own individual problems, and then when they try to interact with other nations, it creates more problems and more friction, and there's less fluidity in the system. There's fewer instances of that ease of access and that convenience of being able to easily use money or transfer value or things of that nature with people outside of your home country or with people outside of the country that you're doing business in or that you live in. Our proposal build monetary bridges using innovative technology and economic structures. So more technically speaking, CaribDollar is a cryptographic stablecoin, a digital means of payment with a stable value collateralized by a basket of Caribbean assets and stabilized by algorithms and trust. CaribDollar is easily accessible throughout the whole Caribbean, irrespective of bank account access. It will be a commonly accepted means of payment throughout the Caribbean, reducing the need for hard foreign currency by businesses, individuals, and governments. CaribDollar will ease and disintermediate cross-border trade using blockchain technology, making financial transactions cheaper, faster, and safer. Okay, right here too. CaribDollar will lead the Caribbean's emerging digital space of finance in the Caribbean twice. Close cooperation and alignment with our other innovators and financial regulators, such as issuers of CBDCs. So they're outright telling you they're going to be working with the people that are issuing these CBDCs. So they're in talks with the Sand Dollar. They're going to be in talks with Jamdex. They're going to be in talks with Dcash. Any other ones? Any of them I'm missing? I think that's all of them, but you get the point. So this isn't going to be independent. They're trying to tie into the existing infrastructure, which is really smart. That's really smart on their part. And licensed financial institutions will broaden CaribDollar's network effect. So how it works. CaribDollar is backed by a basket of digitized financial assets and commodities from the Caribbean, guaranteeing the internal value of the stablecoin. The basket could include gold from Guyana, gas from Trinidad, bauxite from Jamaica, as well as regional currencies. A CaribDollar may always be redeemed against local currencies utilizing some of these collaterals. CaribDollar will also employ algorithmic stabilization on top of the collateral to support the stablecoins pegged to the US dollar or any other reference value chosen by CaribDollar governance. Such a stabilization mechanism enhances capital efficiency of the system. So it's going to be backed, it seems like, by natural resources or possibly even digital representations of those natural resources, similar to how people are tokenizing and digitizing stocks and other securities, other assets of that nature. They may find a way to digitize these assets and then use those as the backing to support the stability of the stablecoin of the CaribDollar. And then topping it off with algorithmic stabilization. So they're going to design it so that it fluctuates in a sense with each of its holdings. So some days it might buy some more gold and sell a bit of gas just to maintain that stability of the price, that stability of the value of the CaribDollar. That's interesting. Stable value also depends on trust in the governance design. No single entity may ever decide to just print new CaribDollar at its pleasure. Committees of Caribbean stakeholders, including government, central banks, and other economic and societal actors, will govern CaribDollar using fixed and transparent digitized rules. This multi-stakeholder governance will utilize the decision mechanism of consent. Utilizing this mechanism leads to a decision as soon as nobody can give a good reason against it. That's interesting. Compared to multilateralism, based on unanimous decisions as done within CARICOM, the consent mechanism combines quality and speed of decisions. Okay. CaribCoin Inc. will provide the technology and the necessary services required to run the whole technical and governance infrastructure. Through the public-private partnership of CaribCoin Inc. and CaribDollar governance, urgently needed additional resources for the provision of CSME will be made available. So how's it going to be introduced? 4-step plan they have here. Step 1, operate an MVP or minimum viable product, which tests cross-border trade between participating companies in 3 Caribbean countries: Barbados, Jamaica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So we went over that before. Expand company-based cross-border trade across the whole Caribbean and test usage of CaribDollar with selected Caribbean individuals. 3 is facilitate mass adoption of CaribDollar across Caribbean individuals and businesses, creating a quasi-monetary union, incentivizing the use by distributing welcome money. And 4, enable extraterritorial transactions and remittances using CaribDollar and expand to new regions. So as it stands right now, we're on step 1, where they're working towards building that minimum viable product and then getting the ball rolling from there. We know for sure they got confirmation, or they got the green light in Barbados, obviously. We know they got the green light in Jamaica. I haven't seen anything about St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but that doesn't mean that they haven't gotten the confirmation yet. I just haven't seen anything. So they still got a ways to go, but it's just showing that they have some foresight and are at least planning how they want this to grow and how they want it to expand in the near future. All Caribbean stakeholders interested in strong, interconnected, and sustainable Caribbean economy are invited to join us on our path towards lasting and collaborative change. So they say, all are welcome, man. Everyone welcome to the party. So we got the table of contents here. Let's see, we went through the executive summary, contents, a fast track towards CSME, enhancing financial inclusion. So stablecoin design, this is going to be a very important part because this is the basis of how the entire thing is going to work. 3 token system type, I got to mark that, I got to remember that for later. We definitely going to check that out. Anyway, multi-stakeholder governance of the CaribDollar system. Okay, that's an interesting part as well. 4-layer system of governance. Okay. Implementation of CaribDollar, theory of change. So overall vision and outcomes.
A few moments later.
Ideas for business models, acknowledgements, bibliography. Okay, so coming down here, fast track towards CSME. Removing disconnections in the Caribbean. So some bullet points here talking about the 3 major barriers for fast realization of CSME. So we have this here. 1, restrictions on capital mobility. A lack of institutional integration within CARIGOM together with decision-making processes. And then 3rd, resource and capacity constraints within governments are further hindrances on the way to CSME. Okay, so the solutions to these barriers, we see intra-regional capital mobility, which means it's going to be way easier to get money, value, whatever it is, from here to there, back over here, without having to have all of these extra fees, extra times, extra downtime. It's cheaper, faster, more efficient throughout the region. 2nd, institutional integration, meaning they're going to tie into the existing infrastructure in each of these countries so that it's not going to be a hassle for people to transition to this. So your existing bank, your existing financial institution is going to be connected directly to this CaribDollar project. So the onboard and offboarding process should be way faster. And private capital and resources will be mobilized to set up a financial infrastructure that's resolving existing resource and capacity constraints. Okay, so sounds like private fundraising. All right, down here, the concept of a quasi-monetary union. And they have here bullet points. I love these bullet points. You could skip a lot of the unnecessary fluff and just get straight to what it is. Summing this up, constituent elements of the proposed quasi-monetary union are: 1, CaribDollar, a stable coin as a means of exchange for the whole Caribbean, accepted because of its underlying mechanisms of trust and value stabilization. Trust is a big thing here. That's why they keep bringing it up. That's really smart. That's really smart because trust is a huge factor in this being successful. 2nd point, governance of the monetary policies by an all-Caribbean multi-stakeholder group, including governments and national central banks, with monetary policies covering central parameters of CaribDollar, such as exchange rates, collateralization, inflation, or velocity. Okay, so decisions are going to be made by the people who make these kind of decisions within each of these regions. So every region is going to be adequately represented in their decision making, in their votes toward how this is going to be, how the governance here is going to work. 3rd, customer protection and safety against systemic risks through close cooperation with regulators and application of appropriate legal framework. Okay, consumer protection and safety is always going to be a talking point, so if you don't see it talked about, you should be worried. And last but not least, untouched national currencies and monetary policies. Coming down some more, they're talking about CaribDollar's introduction and how it can slowly be implemented and integrated into the existing system. So a well-governed introductory process is proposed. 1, carefully monitoring the usage of CaribDollar through enhanced analytical possibilities digital currencies offer. Okay. 2, fully taking into account data privacy, security, and AML issues. Always going to be important. KYC and AML are always, when you're talking about people's money, that's always going to be one of the prime issues to address. And 3rd, closely observing the economic effects catalyzed by the quasi-monetary system. Okay, so these 3 bullet points literally just saying, make it, put it out there, test it out, see how it goes. That's pretty much it. Next steps will be create a legal environment to roll out CaribDollar all over the region, address consumers within a 2nd pilot project, foster mass adoption within the region. Okay. Enhancing financial inclusion. I think we can pretty much skip this part. This is such a frequent talking point in every crypto or blockchain based project that you already know what it's gonna say. It may be right, like they may be 100% right, but you already know easy access, cheap services, welcome money. Now hold on, let me touch on that because that part don't be in every site. That part don't be in every project. Besides these measures to facilitate the use of CaribDollar, a number of CaribDollar yet to be defined will be given to, i.e. airdropped. Ooh, they're using the words too. Every new user as welcome money. Stop that. Just like Jamdex. I hope they give you more than Jamdex though. Jamdex give them what? 2,500 Jamaican dollars, which is about $16 US. You're gonna need more than that to incentivize people to really onboard it. An airdrop is similar to what could be observed in the wake of COVID-19 when national governments, we know what an airdrop is. They give you free money. They hand out free money. Finally, a part of the revenues generated through user fees will be injected into a fund for projects, fostering the sustainable development of the region, making CaribDollar a catalyst of economic revival after the pandemic even more. Consumer protection and risk management. Taking all of this into account. Our institutional setting will not rely on single central party. Smart. Measures for privacy and transaction partners will be taken while at the same time anti-money laundering is built into the system. Smart. Systemic risk management will take into account dependencies between the existing financial system and the new stablecoin system. Straightforward enough. Okay, legal entities. You got CaribCoin Inc., the network of licensed financial institutions, and you have CaribDollar Governance, which is all of the stakeholders that you keep talking about. In detail, leaving customer service and other business-related notes aside, functionality of the CaribDollar system will rely on 8 roles distributed amongst these partners: access providers, payment system providers, custodians of the basket of collaterals used for backing CaribDollar, liquidity providers, market makers, infrastructure provider, blockchain and smart contracts. Okay, developers, devs, you got opportunity here it looks like. Service provided to assist governance roles and the governance roles themselves. Customers will have access to CaribDollar only with proven identity and trustworthiness, especially compliance with AML. Licensed financial institutions, such as local banks, will act as custodians for the basket and its assets. It is proposed that the management of the assets should be done by smart contracts relying on the balancer protocol or another protocol with similar properties to stabilize the value of the collateral. Okay, so they're using balancer. A liquidity pool will be managed by another custodian, either a licensed financial institution or a decentralized protocol, like a DAO. The purpose of this pool is to secure redemption of CaribDollar in times of high redemption rates and or price pressure on the assets within the basket, i.e. a bank run, if everyone decides to yuck out their money at the same time, like what's going on with so many of these other crypto companies right now, who are then proven that they're insolvent. That's basically what this is trying to address. Furthermore, a second liquidity pool will be managed by CaribCoin Inc. utilizing algorithmically managed market maker bots. Liquidity pools and basket assets will be held legally and structurally segregated from the assets of the involved entities. CaribCoin provides technical infrastructure for minting, burning, and maintaining the desired peg and other attributes of CaribDollar. It will be implemented utilizing an existing blockchain such as Algorand, Cardano, Corda, Hedera, Hashgraph, or Tezos. Okay. But I mean, that's just me though. I'm not here to give my biased opinion on which of these, but we're just here to assess this, so let's just dig back into that. And they will offer analytical services and management support to CaribDollar Governance. Of course, that's to be expected. 2 more digital assets will be provided besides CaribDollar. CaribDollar Shares Token, CCS, is used in the minting process and gives owners the right to participate in revenues. CCS price correlates with growing acceptance and usage of the CaribDollar. Okay. And Carib Governance Token, which gives holders the right to participate in the committees the system foresees. They can be obtained by staking CCS or by paying membership fees. They are not freely tradable. Really? That's interesting. So the CCS, the Carib coin, the CaribDollar shares, I guess the CC would be Carib coin. So Carib coin shares used in the minting process gives owners the right to participate in revenues. And through staking the CCS, you can get CCG, which is the governance token, so you can participate in the committees. The value of CCS is determined by the market. CCG will only be accessible via a smart contract requiring signatures, multi-sig, of already active partners in governance. So only the existing people in governance can give you the okay for the CCG. Though theoretically imaginable, no options for legal claims against the stakeholders responsible for the governance seem to be in sight. Transparency is another major asset of proposed system contributing to consumer protection. All three will be issued using the same public blockchain, thus setting up smart contracts minting, redeeming, and burning are governed by decentralized, publicly viewable protocols. Full transparency will be given. Changes of parameters, rules, or stakeholders involved will be announced in advance. External auditors will check the basket composition, how the auditors decided, the liquidity pools, and the smart contracts regularly. Data on these system items will be published on a regular basis. Rights related to the ownership of CCG will be regulated through smart contracts. CaribCoin Inc. will only provide services to give CCG owners the possibility to exercise their rights. Okay. Financial risk management. Main financial risks to be taken into account are fire sales due to market shocks or a sudden loss of trust, malicious actors putting selling pressure, which kind of ties into the fire sales, death spirals, typically for fully algorithmic stable coins, like what we saw with Luna, natural disasters influencing a large part of the value of the basket since it is based on real-world assets, tangible goods, bankruptcy or illiquidity of the custodians or other parties involved, also viable, illiquidity or strong price fluctuations of baskets components. Okay. Main measures against bankruptcy or liquidity risks of the custodians will be keeping the funds legally segregated from other holdings of the custodians. Okay. Working together with several custodians to lower the risk of the system malfunctioning, especially using different custodians for liquidity pool and the basket. Further system risks and effects to be addressed in introducing CaribDollar are: could CaribDollar become a door opener to external shocks affecting the whole region? CaribDollar is designed as a means of exchange. How will the system's governance have to be changed when its usage extends towards a means for loans and investment? That's true. Could CaribDollar be a facilitator of uneven development within the region? Also true. What could interference between national monetary policies and the monetary policy of CaribDollar look like, especially if CaribDollar isn't pegged to the USD? These are some good questions. How does only partially backing the stablecoin by collateral influence trust? A governance body specifically dealing with identification of and tackling these risks will be established. So they're outright saying they don't have the answer to these questions, but they plan on the governance body directly addressing these. So showing that they're aware of them is good. That's great to start out. I have to be honest. That's wonderful that they themselves point out some of these questions. Okay, we're at stablecoin design now. We're about a third of the way there. 30 pages, but wow. Stability of stablecoins results from 4 factors, not all of these inherent to all stablecoins. Collateralization, ensuring redeemability, similar to the gold standard in former times used to stabilize the US dollar and other currencies. So something backing it. That's what they talk about here with the gold standard. Number 2, usage of incentives and arbitrageurs or whatever that word is to stabilize the exchange rate against a predefined so-called peg. Algorithmic stabilization using market signals to automatically adjust collateralization ratios, stablecoin supply, market maker, and other activities via algorithms. Okay, get them bots working, put them bots to work. I could respect that. Trust in governance bodies, just like people trust in central banks. They don't really trust in central banks though. Part of the push towards a lot of these digital assets is that lack of trust in the central banks. But I get what you're saying. Having that trust in the governance bodies is going to be necessary going forward. So you might as well address it out the gate. That's fair. CaribDollar is such a stable coin, tailor-made for the Caribbean region. It will be governed by multiple Caribbean stakeholders, operated by CaribCoin Inc., and combine all 4 factors of stabilization. Okay, overview here. They're given some examples of the different types of stable coins. Well, primarily 3 different types. Coins backed with collateral, purely algorithmically stabilized coins, and then coins that were kind of a combination of both of them. Okay, so we're gonna skip that part. Stabilization mechanisms. As before mentioned, CaribDollar combines several stabilization mechanisms. Backing and pegging. It will be backed by Caribbean digitized assets, commodities like Guyana gold or sand from Antigua, shares of Caribbean companies, land, and Caribbean currencies. So these seem to be the four primary things that they're going to be using to back this CaribDollar. So to even pursue an endeavor like this, they naturally were going to need to have access to a decent amount of assets. They needed a decent amount of assets to actually get this off the ground, get this running. And if they're partnering or they have this governance structure that's spread out throughout the region and everyone is participating or actively contributing to the CaribDollar project, they're actively contributing resources, they're actively contributing things like commodities, shares of the different companies, land in their country, any kind of asset that they can contribute adds to bolstering the project itself. So it's like everyone is contributing stuff to work towards their general best interests. Algorithmic stabilization. So 3 token systems of CaribDollar. For CaribDollar, 3 token systems proposed. We went over that. CaribDollar, CCS, and CCG. These 3 tokens are closely intertwined. CCS takes the volatility out of CaribDollar. Owners receive revenues in return. CCS rises in value with growing acceptance and market cap of CaribDollar. CCS may be locked in and staked to receive CCGs. Owners of CCGs define algorithms, smart contracts, and central parameters of the system, thus stabilizing CaribDollar. I guess my question goes to the availability of CCS to the general public then. And is there going to be a supply cap to it? Like what? A closer look reveals details of the underlying system. I am not going to put you all through reading this and trying to break this down. As usual, I leave all that stuff down in the description. This is really going into the weeds here, the technical part of it. And in most cases, the majority of you don't really care about that part. So if you do, page 14, link down in the description. You could come check it out yourself to get more detail and insight into it. But we're just gonna skip over this for now. Oh, they even have an illustration here, nice and simple, pretty straightforward for you to understand. The layout of this 3 token system. This is pretty cool. Okay, here we go. To avoid a too strong dominance of whales in governance, CCG will be distributed using algorithmic formula. Here we go. To avoid a too strong dominance of whales in governance, CCG will be distributed using a logarithmic formula. KYC and a code of conduct prevent potential fraud through using multiple accounts for staking and thus trying to circumvent the logarithmic scheme. CCG are non-tradable and personalized. So it seems like almost like a permanent NFT in a sense, where it's not really the tradable aspect of it, but the personalized aspect, where it seems to be unique to each person or each individual that has it. And since it's non-tradable, it's provably unique and provably yours, tied to that singular identity that it seems you're going to need when utilizing any of these services. To ensure sustainability of system development, CCG may only be redeemed over a period of 12 months. Okay. Furthermore, the number of CCG given to CCS owners is limited to 30% of the full supply. 70% will be given to Caribbean stakeholders. These stakeholders will have to pay a monthly membership fee in any Caribbean currency to receive a non-transferable CCG. Membership fee would reflect their financial capacities and will be added to the liquidity pool. As a result, these stakeholders don't necessarily need to hold CCS, a highly speculative asset, which could be difficult for some stakeholders like non-profits or governments. Okay. Owners of CCG participate in governance. Example, defining parameters like inflation and the peg. Furthermore, they set the rules for smart contracts, charging, are in and are out. Finally, they decide on when to apply the favored consent mechanism and when to apply full consensus. Full public transparency over decisions is achieved by applying on-chain voting. Okay. Okay. Moving on now to multi-stakeholder governance. There are several reasons why such networks, if set up properly, are often superior to mere governmental activities and should be combined with them. They combine diverse viewpoints and topic-related knowledge, thus enhancing quality of decisions in complex situations. Fair. They bring a large range of influence, power, and resources to the table, thus ease implementation. Also very true. They enhance acceptance of decisions made, since these are then shared decisions. I can see that. They have the potential to be more innovative due to the diversity of actors involved. Also true. They combine a large number of communication channels, thus facilitating larger outreach. Can't argue with none of that. Nevertheless, some of the pitfalls: 1. Accountability, liability, participation, and transparency have to be designed into the system to make it compatible with democratic principles. Closed shops have to be avoided. Burden of participation must be held bearable for stakeholders to avoid strong administrative bodies from taking over control. Yep, that's true too. Okay, coming down here, potential stakeholders from different parts of the Caribbean society and region should be invited to participate, such as Network of Chambers of Commerce, Caribbean Community, CARICOM, Caribbean Conference of Churches, Caribbean Development Bank, Caribbean Policy Development Center, Caribbean Telecommunications Union, Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Caribbean Policy Research Institute, University of the West Indies. So, 4-layer system of governance. Bottom layer consists of, and a nice diagram here to go along with it. The bottom layer consists of smart contracts safeguarding minting and redemption of Carib coin, and, if necessary, triggering market maker functions to ensure that parameters of CaribDollar stay within preset corridors. Okay. Layer 2, a finance committee defines these parameters as well as the respective corridors. Through usage of multi-sig systems, safety of the system against malicious changes of parameters is secured. Layer 3 gives a system design committee the possibility to change the set of smart contracts and the contracts themselves. A vast majority of CSG token holders are necessary for such a change. Okay. And at the tippity top, the stablecoin system is integrated into the implementation and development process of its monetary policy, the design of which is controlled by a monetary policy committee. So by design, the base layer is just running it. The layer on top of that is stabilizing it. The layer on top of that, after it's stabilized, is how it's governed, how it's designed, how it's tailored to meet the demands of the people it's supposed to serve. And then the final layer, or the top, the peak of the pyramid, is its implementation and its development throughout the region. So Carib Coin's rules concerning governance are setting up and testing the smart contracts for the starting configuration, technical assistance and expert advice when changing the set of smart contracts, delivering a handbook of governance together with the necessary tools and implementing it in close cooperation with regional stakeholders, providing data for system control, offering decision-making services to stakeholders, ensuring implementation process management until responsibility has been handed over to stakeholders, securing or cybersecurity of the technical system. So these are the things Carib Coin is saying that it's directly responsible for in terms of governance. Page 20 now. We two-thirds. We almost there. This might not be too long for y'all, but this is long for me. I'm actually reading through this. This is long. But let's get back to it. We almost done. Alright, so on to the implementation. Challenging issues: introducing a quasi-monetary union, setting up a complex combination of on and off-chain governance approaches, setting up a public-private partnership for monetary infrastructure within a multinational region, and doing all this in a region with a history of various attempts to establish CSME. They're very self-aware. I have to give them that. The project itself is very aware of what it's trying to do and who it's trying to do it with. I have to tip my hat to them for that, because this is what knowing your audience looks like. This is what knowing your target demo looks like. And down here we have, I guess, a diagram for the principles of a successful process towards the quasi-monetary union. So, agile approach, Caribbean ownership, process management, vibrant culture, specific outcomes, powerful vision. Overall vision and outcomes. I feel like we covered this. Wasn't this at the beginning? The vision and the mission? These were at the beginning. So we can skip this part. Implementation, convince stakeholders, prepare MVP, test, rollout, mass adoption, extra regional. Straightforward, we covered that too. And it looks like this part here, they're giving updates on the outcomes of phase 0, which was convincing the stakeholders and preparing the pilot project. Phase 1, pilot project and sandboxes, proof of concept. 2 alternatives may be taken into account. 1, define regions such as Barbados, Jamaica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and open phase 1 for companies within these regions who do cross-border trade between the target regions. Or 2, identify up to 5 bigger companies doing cross-border trade with each other. Companies could be Massey, NCB Financial Group, Sagicor, Grace Kennedy, Sandals, Nestle, Digicel. The first version would focus on a technical proof of concept, whereas the second one would already include an economic proof of concept, aiming at lowering NTBs for the companies involved. Desired outcomes of this phase. So this is what they're looking for after they launch the MVP and start to run the pilot in the sandboxes. So proof of stability and functionality, significantly growing use of CaribDollar as a means of payment, proof of financial advantages for companies, proof of governance to work in the desired way, companies outside the sandbox actively apply to participate, so people are showing interest based on the progress of the sandbox pilot, and vivid interest of Caribbean stakeholders in the progress of the project. Activities proposed to achieve these outcomes are provide tools to use CaribDollar as a payment vehicle, provide measures to integrate payment processes into the accounting of the participating companies, provide legal framework for the companies to use CaribDollar, provide handbook for governance processes and establish them together with pilot stakeholders, identified in phase 0, design and deliver process management, marketing, set up and perform economic, legal, and governance evaluation, actively engage with a network of Caribbean stakeholders and ambassadors for the project, and create highlights to support a vibrant culture of change. So phase 0 was scope out the scene and see who could potentially be interested, who would want to, who would bite, who's going to take the bait. Not saying that it's a trap, just using a metaphor. Who's going to take the bait, who's going to bite on it, who's going to make the leap or that lunge into the unknown. The second one is actually launching it, running a proof of concept, showing, basically proving that, okay, this idea not only works, but it works well. It functions well enough for us to decide to expand this. And if it does function that well, in most cases, you would have more people or more of these potential stakeholders interested in participating in the pilot and participating in the launch and the expansion of the project. So phase 0 and phase 1 are both about getting more people interested and involved in the process and its implementation. Phase 2, onboarding consumers and preparing all Caribbean rollout. So phase 2 is just boots to the ground. They already got the proof, they got enough backing, they got enough of a track record, they know that it works, they know that it works well enough, and it's been developed enough for them to expand it some more. So now they're saying, boy, hit everyone. We getting this in everyone's hands. That's phase 2. Available for companies all over the region for purpose of intra-regional trade, available for consumers in sandboxes. So it's still not in phase 2 gonna be completely ubiquitous. It's not just gonna be free flowing and everyone has full unhindered access to it. It's still gonna be relatively sandboxed for general consumers. I think the businesses themselves are going to be the first ones, because they did say themselves that their focus right now is B2B. Their focus right now is the financial side of the business to business aspect of it. They're looking at businesses first, and then it's going to trickle down, like Dr. Schroeder said, it's going to trickle down to the consumers. Desired outcomes of phase 2, proof of stability and functionality for a larger user base, parameter of CaribDollar stay within desired range set by governance, full acceptance as a means of payment by consumers, companies in all nations use it, full legal clarity all over the region, proof of governance in multinational setting, growing demand all over the region for the dollar, vivid engagement of Caribbean economic stakeholders to support the project, vivid interest of governments to engage in governance, vivid engagement of societal actors within the sandbox to support it. This phase goes along with three major challenges, though: being capable in organizational terms to be present in the whole region as an infrastructure and service provider. That's pretty big, which means they themselves are going to have to expand to meet the demand of the CaribDollar's expansion. So Carib Coin Inc. itself is going to have to grow to be able to meet that demand, because they're supposed to be the primary source for the infrastructure and service provided duties. Now, it is going to be delegated over time, ideally when the thing is complete, when it's fully fleshed out and it's ubiquitous throughout the region. These things are going to be delegated and allocated. These things are going to be delegated amongst the different stakeholders and different people involved. But starting out in the very beginning, they are still supposed to be the primary providers for support across all aspects of the project. So for them to do that with an expanding project, the team or the group CaribCoin Inc. itself would have to grow and expand to meet that. I think that's what they're saying here. Developing a B2C business with all of its facets, business to consumer. Setting up and supporting a well-functioning governance structure with representatives of the whole Caribbean society. Okay. So, phase 3, mass adoption in the Caribbean and preparing extra-regional rollout. So, desired outcomes: full capability to deal with attacks and stress situations, widespread usage, close connection of Carib governance with CARICOM governance, vivid engagement of Caribbean stakeholders in all parts of the society, first experiences with remittances and extra-regional trade. Some of the major points of concern: managing the growth, supporting the development, and completely handing over the responsibility for governance to the Caribbean people in a well-designed and responsible manner. So phase 3 here seems to be when they actually plan on handing over more of the reins to the stakeholders and to the people that are supposed to be involved and actively engaged in this ecosystem. And right now we in phase 1. So we still got a ways to go with this. They still a ways out, but this foresight is very refreshing. Finally, phase 4, extraterritorial usage. Finally, a few words about phase 4. The phase is meant to establish CaribDollar as a means for extraterritorial value transfer, especially focusing on remittances, trade with partners outside the region, and services for offshore companies. No outcomes are proposed at this moment, since first experiences with the quasi-monetary union and the pilots proposed in phase 3 should be made before doing this next big step. I like that. I respect that. They're saying that they have no proposed outcomes because there's no way to know how phases 2 and 3 will go and what the outcome will be, what decisions are made, what alterations to the governance and to the structure of the CaribDollar and the whole system itself could be made at that point. So what they're saying there is basically phase 2 and 3 will determine what's going to be decided or what's going to be expected for phase 4. That's fair. Agile process design. Agile processes are characterized by an iterative approach to achieve their desired outcomes. Following this line of thought, 2 layers of iteration are proposed. Layer 1, iteration of theory of change. The underlying theory of change should at least be checked at the beginning of each phase, maybe even more often depending on results of evaluation and experiences made within the implementation process. In doing so, especially the underlying assumptions should be challenged while leaving the outcomes untouched, unless severe obstacles make specific outcomes unreachable or others more desirable. Layer 2, sprints to implement the change process. Okay, I'm gonna skip this part. Y'all can tune into it in the description. Like I said, you can come read it yourself. This part isn't that important for understanding what's going on here. It's just more details and more tech talk. Ownership by regional stakeholders in order to not trade dependency on the Federal Reserve against dependency on a private company using issuing CaribDollar, both governance of the stablecoin and the implementation process itself will be handed over step by step to regional stakeholders as part of the implementation process. Like we saw earlier, phase 3 is when they want to start delegating and handing out more of that personal responsibility to the stakeholders themselves. At the end of the process, CaribCoin Inc. will be an infrastructure and service provider and not a centralized source of power in the system. We propose to do this step by step. Wonderful. Professional process management. Professional process management of the process described herein is crucial for success. Core elements are keeping an eye on the theory of change and permanently adjusting it to project and regional realities. Keeping an eye on the theory of change and permanently adjusting it to project and regional realities together with selected stakeholders. Setting up and adjusting professional network and process structures. Having a clear understanding of the difference between a classical project and an open change process. Clear and transparent communication concerning participants within the process as well as towards the outside world, which should turn into an inside world at some point in the process. Okay. Professional management of resources involved, installing CaribCoin Inc. and its workforce as enablers and not as captains of the process, finding the right people and institutions to foster the process and to work on the operational level. Okay, ideas for business models. 3 major roles in setting up and keeping the Carib system running. Further developing the system outlined in this paper in close collaboration with Caribbean stakeholders, set up and support the process of testing and developing and establishing the system, maintain and support the core infrastructure of CaribDollar, the technical backbone, analytics, and the support of governance processes. Following tasks being in responsibility of partners, setup of local support structures and processes to give users access to CaribDollar, especially the unbanked users, development and implementation of user interfaces to actually use CaribDollar. Maintaining the infrastructure would go along with participating in minting, redemption, and transaction fees, revenues from management of basket assets and liquidity pool, revenues from holding CCS as reserve liquidity for redemption purposes. Support for the governance structures would be done via service contracts concerning process management, data provision and analysis, maintenance and technical infrastructure, development of onboarding and payment infrastructures. Acknowledgements. This white paper relies strongly on the ideas of Gabriel Abed on a One Caribbean stablecoin. It combines his deep knowledge of the Caribbean with expertise of Dr. Jan Schroeder in governance, design, and open social innovation. Special thanks to Abed Ventures Inc. for the human and financial resources introduced into the project. Highly valuable insights have been given by Marla Ducaran, please forgive me, Roland Higgins, Denise Hines, Kevin Hope, Damian King, John McDougall, Professor Winston Moore, Jenny Mitkov, Professor Avinash Prasad, Jennifer Rafael, Jeremy Steffens, Rodney Taylor, and the team of CTU. So across the board, if I mispronounce your name again, I apologize. All due respect to you. This seems to be a well thought out, I can't say well put together project yet because it's still in its iterative stages, but it's well thought out, and you can see that someone with a decent amount of experience in the field around crypto, stable coins, altcoins, all of these, just the space in general, was involved in the creation of this project. And then the bibliography. Woo! Okay, 30 pages down. You made it to the end of it, and you made it to the end of this video. I know for most people who don't like the techie stuff, you don't really dig too much into this, you don't like getting into the nitty gritty, you don't care how the project works. You may have been bored out of your mind watching this, but I guarantee this is the kind of information that's going to be crucial going forward in understanding how these projects are going to develop and how your country is going to change and adapt as these developments go on. Because it's moving with or without you. I'm not saying this is the end all be all. I'm not saying this is destined for success or this is 100% the best outcome. I don't know. I can't call it. And they can't call it themselves, as they clearly pointed out. They know that this is still very experimental. They know that there's a lot of hoops, a lot of obstacles to overcome, a lot of blockades that they gotta go through or get around for this to actually become the reality that they envision. But on a positive note, them being fully aware of the challenges that they face and still pushing forward with a plan of action in the instances of these shortcomings or problems or roadblocks along the way, I think they have a pretty good chance. Especially looking at the back end they got. I mean, it's Mr. Barbados. You know? So with the backing that it has, the kind of structure that they're proposing, and the partnerships that they're looking to start out with and implement as it continues to grow and develop, I'm seeing heavy possibilities for CaribDollar in the future. I'm seeing some strong possibilities for CaribDollar becoming a household name in the future. Easily. That's just me though. What do you think? Let me know your opinions. Like the project. If you don't like it, what you agreed with, what you didn't agree with, if I might have overlooked something, if you see something like a glaring fault, a hole in the system, a glitch in the matrix, anything that you notice that I may have missed or I didn't touch on, let us know down in the comments and we could have a discussion on it. I'd love to hear what some of you think about the project, because this is different. It's big. Very, very big. This is kind of a big deal, and through its implementation, this can drastically change the trajectory of many Caribbean countries within the next 10-15 years, probably even sooner, because tech goes fast, and it's going faster every year as the tech gets better. But I don't want to drag on too long, because I could go on a tangent and just run on for another hour, so I'm going to end it right here with thank you for tuning into another episode of Crypto and the Caribbean. If I gave you any insight, any information, anything that you may not have known and you're glad that you know now, anything positive at all, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell so we could hit you with this crypto information every day of every week. Like I say at the end of every episode, we have a network with almost 20 different shows on this channel, all covering different topics, different aspects of the crypto space. So if you want to stay tapped in, you want to stay on the pulse of everything that happens in crypto, you don't want to miss these shows, hit that subscribe, hit the bell. If you leave something in the comments and I don't get to it immediately or ever, the best way to reach me directly is through my Linktree. The Linktree has all of my content, all of my socials, everything that you're going to need to know about me, so you can yell at me directly or we can engage in some civil discussions. That's not normally the case, but whatever you're into, you can find me right there. All in all though, thank y'all again for sitting with me through yet another boring white paper breakdown. I appreciate y'all coming through. Until next time, we can link.